The Bible doesn't really give us a complete picture of Baal worship, but we did have another source. There's a man called Philo, and he wrote a book, which he claimed he translated a book written by a man named He claimed that these were the old stories about gods of Baal. And here's what he said. He said that there was a god named El Elyon. El Elyon is the name of the God of the Bible, one of the names that God has. But he says that there's another God named El, which would be Elohim, the God of the Hebrew Bible. So he says this is a different God. And El Elyon has another son named Hadad, who is the God we know as Baal. And Baal means the Lord. And in this genealogy, there's other interesting gods that came from El Elyon. A god called Zadok, a god called Shaddai. Now, we know God is called El Shaddai in the Bible, and we know that Zadok is the word for righteousness, which is used for God. Also, you have Melkart, which some people think is one of the Baals in the Bible. Here you have the family tree of gods. You have Baal Hadad, who's the antagonist in the Bible, the false god of the Bible, but we also have El Elyon, El, Zadok, Shaddai, Melkart. These are names used for the God of the Bible, which is very interesting. But Sanchuniathon, the problem with him is when he tells these myths, he's telling them from a Greek point of view. He's trying to fit this Semitic mythology into the Greek mythological system. So it may not represent the actual form of Baal worship. But they discovered that these gods, El Elyon, they have been attested by the ancient discoveries they've made. Now, Sanchuniathon, he's quoted from in the early church fathers. We only have like 5 pages max from his work. Why? How can we have more knowledge now? Because in 1929, that's what this book is, a farmer was plowing his field and he came across the ruins of Ugarit. And this is a Canaanite city, and in these excavations, they have discovered the religious literature of the Baal worshippers. And here's the story. It's kind of a simple story. God is El, and this is the name used for God in the Bible. So El has a son named Dagon, and this is a good example of how false information is put out about pagan religions, especially about Canaanite religions. This religion disappeared, and we had no idea really about what they taught and believed, except for these fragments in the Greek language, which are fragmentary and incomplete, perhaps not totally accurate. So really we didn't know who Dagon was. And some bonehead rabbi thought, well, Dag sounds like the Hebrew word for fish, therefore Dagon must be a fish god. It's not a fish god. He's a god of grain. He is called the father of Hadad, and Hadad is Baal. Lord Hadad, that's what Baal means. And here's the other problem. These people who know nothing about paganism insist that all pagan religions are about sun worship. Well, El really isn't a sun god, Dagon is not a sun god, and neither is Baal Hadad. Baal Hadad is the god of thunder. So that's who Baal is. But here's what happens in the story. There's a god named Yam. And Yam is the Hebrew word for the sea. And he's personified as the god of the sea. And Yam wants to become king. He wants El to recognize him as king, get rid of Hadad, and bring in him as king. So Hadad fights with Yam and defeats him with the help of his sisters. And that's Anath and Ashtoreth. Both of these goddesses are mentioned in the Bible. The Bible talks about Shamgar, the son of Anath, in the book of Judges. She's a warrior goddess. Ashtoreth is a sex goddess. And there's another goddess you need to know about, and that is Asherah. So who is Asherah? Asherah is a tree, the tree of life. But she's also a goddess, the mother of all gods. So El had a wife who is Asherah, and he begat 70 sons of God, who are gods of various things. Like Hadad's the god of thunder, Yam is the god of the sea, Dagon is the god of agriculture, Anath is a war goddess, Ashtoreth is a sex goddess. So the story continues. Baal Hadad decides that he wants to build a palace on Mount Zaphon. And he does it. He builds this palace. But shortly after he builds his palace, he's challenged by a god named Mot. Mot is the Hebrew word for death, so this is the god of death. And Mot defeats Baal-Hadad. And Baal-Hadad has to go into the netherworld, into Sheol. So he died. But then, after 7 years of Baal being dead and a great famine across the face of the world, Anath approaches El, saying that she wants to go and rescue her brother from the netherworld. And she does it. She goes down and she defeats Mot. She liberates Baal-Hadad. Then Baal-Hadad and Mot get in this struggle, and finally El announces a winner. Baal-Hadad becomes the new king. El is God. He's the king of kings, but the king that rules underneath Baal-Hadad. So that's the basic myth, the story of Baal. So what about Tammuz? Who is Tammuz? Well, it seems like Tammuz was an ancient king a long time ago. He's a real person. He wasn't the son of Semiramis. By the time Semiramis ruled, the worship of Tammuz had been established. But you can read the text for yourself in this book. Inanna, queen of heaven and earth. Inanna is Ishtar. That's her Sumerian name. She's the same goddess as Ashtoreth. And what she does, she's a very sexually promiscuous goddess. And what she does is she sees Tammuz. And Tammuz is called Damuzi. Damuzi is a shepherd god. And Ashtoreth courts Tammuz. They become married. Damuzi and Inanna. So anyway, what happens in the story is Ishtar, Inanna, Ashtoreth, whatever you want to call her, she decides that she's going to go into the netherworld and confront her sister, Ereshkigal, I think that's her name. But she's the goddess, this is the goddess of the netherworld. And she goes down there and Ishtar is going to try to take over the netherworld. But she's defeated by Ereshkigal, her sister. She's going to be imprisoned in the netherworld forever. Before Ishtar went down there, she sent a servant to say, hey, if I don't come out in 3 days, then go and ask the gods to save me. So one of the servant goes and asks the god to deliver Ishtar from the netherworld. So they do, they rescue her. But Ereshkigal, the queen of the netherworld, she says that no one who has entered into the netherworld is allowed to leave. If Ishtar is going to leave, she needs to supply a substitute. She does. She sacrifices her beloved husband, Tammuz, into hell. But Tammuz has a sister named Geshtinanna. And Geshtinanna comes to the netherworld and offers herself to take her brother's place. So the deal is made that Tammuz spends 6 months in the netherworld, and he's released, and then his sister takes the other 6 months. So during the summer months, spring and summer, Tammuz is on earth, and winter and fall, he's in the netherworld, and he's changed places with his sisters. Tammuz is a shepherd god. He's not a sun god either. Everybody thinks everything's about sun gods, but he's not. My book about this, which has more detailed information, is called The Epic of Baal. The whole story's in there, more detailed information, and I discuss the biblical background and also archaeological evidence.